everybody. Alright, so we are doing a little bit of a briefing on this upcoming severe weather event that is going to be occurring tomorrow, particularly across eastern Michigan and I'd say western Ohio, probably included in that as well. So we're going to just go break down all the models, do state by state kind of breakdown of each of the models, and if you have questions, leave them in the chat, YouTube, Facebook. I won't see them on Instagram, so you might want to hop over to YouTube to check there. But I'm going to be doing this live update for the next maybe 20 minutes or so, just to give you guys an idea of what's going on and to give you an idea of what my plans are in terms of chasing this upcoming event that we'll be beginning tomorrow. So let's begin with the SPC's outlook for this setup. Okay, so here we have the Storm Prediction Center's Day 2 convective outlook. This is for tomorrow. Slight risk for severe thunderstorms across, now including, as a matter of fact, eastern Michigan, central and eastern Indiana, and the entire state of Ohio is now included in this as well. So you can see it's kind of a expansive threat for severe thunderstorms. There's still a lot of questions as to where those storms are going to fire, and a lot of that's going to have to do with how morning convection goes on during the day tomorrow as well. If there's any morning convection that's ongoing across Indiana and Ohio, that's really going to change where I'll likely set up for chasing. But in the end, it is likely that I'm going to be starting off in eastern Michigan, somewhere probably in southeastern Michigan near Adrian. I've been seeing quite a few hints of some pretty strong supercells down in that region, and then going south along I-75 down towards southern Ohio, because the storms will pretty much just be firing along that boundary all the way east. So I'm expecting a lot of thunderstorm activity to continue through that area, and I'll show you the models that kind of show that as well. Here's tornado risk again. When you see a 2% tornado risk, that means that there's pretty much going to be a 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. So that's kind of what we're watching with that. With the winds, again, damaging wind threat, 15% of damaging wind gusts within 25 miles of a point. Hail, also central to this region as well. So you can see all hazards are on the table for this setup, and a lot of that has to do with the wind dynamics in the upper levels, mid levels, and surface levels as well. There's going to be a relatively decent setup for all severe hazards at this current point, so we'll see if there's more of a focused place of an enhanced risk possible maybe tomorrow, but I'm not going to say that that's going to be a certainty. We'll see what goes on. Here's their discussion on it, talking about what is going to be going on. There's going to be enough instability in the atmosphere where you're going to get good sunshine, good shear in the deep layers. It's kind of what they're showing. I'm going to show you that on the models real quick as well as we go through this. But this is the Day 2 convective outlook, so keep that in mind. If you're in the yellow area, you're going to be watching the weather tomorrow. That includes Detroit, Indianapolis, Columbus as well in this region here. So that slight risk you are included in during this time. The enhanced risk is farther out to the west near Kansas. That's for more of a long and damaging wind threat. So this is associated with a low that's going to be moving off to the east. Let's take a look at the models now and get an idea of what's going on. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to go through each model, starting with the NAM, because I feel like the HRRR and even the RRFS, which is a prototype, might do a better job even still than the NAM in some cases. But again, all three are valuable and worth looking at, so we're going to take a look at each one. So here's the threat for the Great Lakes region. Let's first of all zoom into don't mess with me here. First of all, let's just zoom right into Michigan. We'll start there because that's really where I think things are going to begin for this weather event. Things are going to begin here and then progress into more of a linear mode as you go down into Ohio. So let's take a look at this to start off. Yeah, I don't think Corey Lake's going to get that much. Really, places in the west, on the western side of Michigan, look to be out of this one. I really think it's going to be farther to the east. Pretty much anywhere east of I-69 kind of looks like the main zone. We're starting at 7 a.m. You do notice there's some rainfall that could possibly be occurring in some different places across the region. That is going to have a big influence on what to expect with this setup. So you do see that maybe a few storms fire as early as 9 a.m. across on the western side of Michigan. Now, I don't expect there to be really any type of threat with these as these storms come in, but as we get closer to the midday in the afternoon, you do notice that storms begin to fire across northern Michigan. That includes areas west of Mount Pleasant, areas to the north. You get a sounding from the NAM. This is the NAM 3K once again. Photographs are a little bit arched, but not really seeing that strong helicity capable of producing that type of scenario. So I don't really expect too much in terms of severe weather from these initial cells. It's when we get into the afternoon around 1 o'clock that these storms begin to fire around Mount Pleasant that I think these could pack some pretty decent potential. There you start to see that increase in potential for severe weather. Your storm relative helicity values go up to around 150, 130. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on with the weather here. You've got your increase in CAPE values, low cloud bases, good speed and directional shear, and a lot of that has to do with the jet that's being pushed in associated with this low pressure system. That jet that is surging from the west. You got your westerly winds aloft, and then you got your southwesterlies at the surface, creating that spin in the atmosphere. You got a nice photograph that's kind of arched. Yes, we do need the rain. That is beyond the shadow of a doubt. That is something that we've been lacking, and I mean we can use, well, not lacking in the past couple days, but we can always use more of it right now. But again, 1 p.m. it's being shown by the NAM right here. You can see it kind of forms a more linear mode. NAM really likes to play off the linear type of setup more often. You can kind of see that there's an increase in CAPE. There's going to be a lot of instability anywhere on the eastern portion. Yep, that's what I'm doing right now, showing you those current models at the current moment. But you can see that the storms begin to reach the Lansing area around 3 p.m. And wow, there's a lot of discombobulation in this chart here. But you can see that, again, some places do show that there's going to be quite a bit of spin in the atmosphere. Good instability around over 2,000. You got a nice photograph here. You do have that increase in potential. I think there's potential for maybe a few isolated tornadoes with this setup. And it shows a more linear setup of these storms around 5 p.m. continuing across much of Michigan during the afternoon and the evening hours before moving into parts of Ohio, and then continuing to chase these through about 9 p.m. You see around 8 p.m. all the storms in Michigan are gone according to the NAM. So this is one model. We're going to look at this model here, and then also look at the model in comparison to Indiana and Ohio as well. So I want to kind of get a full-fledged view for all different places. I'm going to go to Ohio now. And you can still see much of eastern Indiana here associated with a slight risk. I'm really going to just stick to the Michigan-Ohio charts because I think western Indiana is going to be out of this. Not really going to be expecting too much in terms of severe weather in western Indiana. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to go back to the time that we were looking at for Ohio. You can see there's an initial pop-up of a few cells according to the NAM. Here, don't think those will really amount to too much, but as we get into the afternoon, what the NAM is showing is that storms will reach Toledo by about 6 p.m. Sounding ahead of those, still showing that severe potential, low cloud bases, good directional and speed shear with those storms, and then they really just form a linear mode as they come across the entire state of Ohio. You can see west to east there is strong thunderstorms ongoing across the entire state around 9 p.m. Northern parts of Ohio do seem to have that development of a mesocyclonic system that could potentially produce a few bouts of severe weather across the area. And it looks like they will progress through the evening and begin to move out of the area, the state by about 2 a.m. And it looks like these storms could continue throughout the evening across the state. So my plan is to start up here near US 127. I'll have US 127 that takes me all the way down to Van Wert. And that's kind of the area that I like to chase the most in because it's very open in that region. But I'm going to try to get down to that area, maybe cut on the toll road up towards this region as well. We'll have to see how things turn out. But I'll be following these storms all the way down towards southwestern Ohio as they continue. So that's the NAM run. Let's take a look at the HRRR run real quick. Let me make sure that I'm getting to all the comments here. We'll do best to be safe during this whole setup here. Make sure everything's all good here. Alright, we are good to go. So, alright, so Instagram, I can't see your comments, so you're going to have to hop over to YouTube in order for me to see those. But we're going to look at I don't want to look at the RFSA. I want to look at the HRRR right now. So, whoopsie. Let me look at that real quick. Alright, here we go. I could possibly go towards the Columbus area. It depends on how the storms evolve. HRRR does put an evolution on it that's a little bit different, so that's why I'm going to show you this one. I think I'm going to rely a bit more on the HRRR and the RFS. I mean, the NAM is good, but there is sometimes it can be a little bit too intense for what is actually going to be happening. So we'll start with Michigan once again. This is as we get into morning 7 a.m. You see that low pressure system beginning to move in, and on the back side of this low pressure system, which I'm actually going to show you right now with the freeze frame, on the southern side of this low pressure system, you do notice that there is good support in the mid and upper levels, and I'm going to show you that. Here's your mid-level winds. This is at about 4 p.m. Your mid-level winds are around 30 to 40 knots across northern Ohio, northern Indiana, and southern Michigan. That support will foster more convective development capable of producing severe weather. And the stronger your mid-level and upper-level winds, the higher potential also for tornadoes, especially if you get that higher instability, a lot more lift in the atmosphere coming along with that cold front. You can definitely see a greater increase in that tornado potential. For some reason I can't load the 500 millibar map. There it is. So you can see that there's support in the upper levels as well, 500 millibar. So up in the atmosphere where the height is 500 millibars, you have 40 to 50 knots of winds, or winds out of the northwest and somewhat out of the northwest continuing. So, oh good, glad you got the training. Hello little Zerv, glad you're here. Glad you got the training for spot. Yeah, you guys can get spotter training for anything that's going on across your area. I got spotter trained for southwestern Ohio as well as for northern Indiana. So those regions I am spotter trained in. So I don't think I have clearance in this region yet, but still I've been trained, kind of can see what's going on out here. But you can see that there's support in the upper levels. Now let's go back to the loop for Michigan. Just wanted to show you that support that is currently in the atmosphere for this setup. So as we get into around 1 p.m., you do notice that the HRRR does depict a cell firing here across northern Michigan, packing marginal sphere potential. I think this is a more better assessment of the environment up in that region. Cape values of 1200. It does show a little bit of tornado potential. You do have directional and speed shear in the atmosphere. I would say don't fear about tomorrow. Depending on your location, I mean, there's gonna be a lot of chasers and spotters out there reporting on things going on across the area. So no need to be concerned, but I would say just be watching the weather, and we've got people watching as well. But low cloud bases, you do have not really relatively very high cloud tops with this, but still showing that tornado potential that could occur with these storms that are moving off to the north. And that's as far as this run goes. I'm going to back it up to a run that goes a little bit further. That's the most updated run. Now, the run that was previous for about 1 p.m. Around 1 p.m. we do have storms that could possibly be firing also across parts of southern Michigan. Now, the newest models do not depict something like that, and that means that'll get more time for this region to develop more instability and higher severe weather convective development down in the southern regions. So that might play a role in our setup for tomorrow. But again, my plan is for this storm setup, regardless of if storms fire to the north, is I'm going to be probably starting around this region here, dropping south once these storms begin to fire. If those storms do fire, that is being depicted by the HRRR. So you can see, similar to what the NAM says, that most storms will be out of the area by about 10 p.m. So that's moving out of the region, and all will be pretty quiet after that. It doesn't look like there's going to be too much on the back side of this system. So let's go to Ohio now. And I actually want to go to a severe weather graphic for this. I want to see the reflectivity so I can see that updraft helicity within these storms as well. So this is the 18Z model run. Now something that interests me is that across northern Ohio, it is showing updraft velocity greater than 75 square meters per second. So you can definitely see that there is going to be some strong there could be some supercells embedded in this line here. So packing some severe potential, Cape values of 3300, not showing too much storm relative velocity on the HRRR, which is very interesting because these storms do show some pretty decent updraft velocity. It's probably going to be more in the higher levels though. Winds down at the surface might be a little bit weaker with the setup, which is perfect for drone flying. So I think I'm going to get some good drone shots of some of these supercells, which I'm looking forward to that. But let's take a look at some of the comments here. Do you think we will wake up to an enhanced risk even if we don't get much tomorrow for Western Ohio? Too soon to tell. I don't really want to say we'll wake up to an enhanced risk just yet because there's still some discrepancies with the setup. I do think it's going to be a good setup though in some places. Chris, welcome to the stream. Glad you're here. And yeah, I'm hoping that the best case scenario occurs for the safety of everyone, and if there's any tornadoes that they're out in open areas with nothing significant. But you look at about 5 p.m., you can see there's a nice solid convective line that's just developed across Ohio. Pretty much all the models are depicting a nice solid line of storms across Ohio, and that is why I'm really just going to follow these storms down south along I-75, and if any storms become a bit more intense, look at that updraft velocity, that line just north of Findlay, Ohio. Findlay, Ohio is kind of a place I might just stick around to as well, but may track east if I need to at a given point, and then Columbus, maybe I'll make it all the way out to Columbus. But around 6 p.m., you can see that convective line continues. Let me get a sounding ahead of this storm by Findlay. Marginal tornado potential does show storm relative velocity values of around 200. Directional shear, it's good speed shear in the atmosphere. Progressing it forward. 7 p.m., you do have that convective line continuing all the way from Columbus down towards Dayton, all the way up towards Akron as well. Looking like a good mesocyclonic system. Yeah, I would agree with you there. Yeah, I don't want another Dayton, Ohio moment. That was a really bad outbreak that occurred a few years ago. That would be not a good thing to have occur. Storms continue across central Ohio through 8 p.m. Oops, went a little too far there. But you did see a bunch of pop-up showers and strong thunderstorms moving across the area through about midnight, and then finally moving out of Ohio around 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So there's a lot to still be determined about the setup because still multiple models don't agree. I'm going to go to the RFS. Keep in mind, though, that as we look at the RFS, it is a prototype model, but still does a pretty good job, not going to lie. So here we have the reflectivity from the RRFSA. I'm going to look at the reflectivity charts again. So as we get into 10 a.m., 10 a.m., the RRFSA does in fact depict a few storms popping up over the lake early, just like the other models are depicting, and it does depict a pretty strong little cell, just like the HRRR does across northern parts of Michigan, and it also depicts supercells even in parts of Kalamazoo County. Now that's interesting. I wanted to get a sounding of that. You do have marginal sphere potential with that. You do have storm relative velocity. Not really looking too great for that storm though, I don't think. But this cell right here, just south of Traverse City, looks pretty beefy. Oops. Got a lot of updraft velocity in there. Really not looking at too much instability though to kind of fuel this storm. Kind of lacking in that elevated cloud base. Well, if you don't have a basement, if there's any severe weather, which again, I wouldn't say this is one of the biggest threats that we've had for severe weather across Ohio, but I would say if something does happen, the safest place to go is into your room on the lowest floor of a building. And if you don't have a basement, it's your first floor. Get into like a closet or something like that when there's like a tornado warning or something along those lines. But that's just the safer place to go if you're dealing with something like that. And then the storms, by the time we get to the afternoon, it looks like by about 5 p.m. could have some pretty decent storms firing across, again, southern Michigan, just like was shown previously, you do have tornado potential. You have Cape values of 2600, storm relativity of around 100 to 200, some in different portions of the atmosphere. So good, decent enough spin to create a supercellular setup. And then you can see, again, as the other models depicted, moves out of the area by about 7 or 8 p.m. Let's look at Ohio now. Storms begin to move in again, similar to how the HRRR depicted the 18Z run as well. The RFS does depict those supercells firing around Toledo, Bowling Green, along the Indiana Toll Road regions. Packing that severe potential. Doesn't really show too much spin in the atmosphere associated with these though. So definitely don't look to be supercells. They just look to be clusters of storms that could be strong to severe. And then by 6 p.m. you see these storms firing across parts of Ohio and then begin to move southeast. Now this is a cluster that looks pretty potent just north of Findlay. HRRR and the RFS do depict this storm north of Findlay. Severe potential. Now chances for a tornado in southwestern Ohio, again, pretty low. They're looking pretty low. I mean, this is not the greatest setup for tornadoes. There is spin in the atmosphere, but there's not a significant amount of spin in the atmosphere. Not like what we had in southern portions of Michigan last Wednesday. So definitely, I don't think it's going to be a very, and I mean, too soon to tell with some things, but I really think it's going to be more of a damaging wind and hail threat. And that may change with later model runs, but as if we see an increase in spin in the atmosphere, but it looks like we'll probably be more looking along the lines damaging winds, hail, and some pretty cool clouds in the atmosphere. So you can really see that these storms move across Findlay, Bowling Green, and move off to the east, and it doesn't really show too much firing across southwestern Ohio. The RFSA does not. It really shows that it's all going to be really focused across this northern region. That's not to say that southwestern Ohio is completely out of it, because we had other models depicting storms in southwest Ohio. But it does really show that northern Ohio might be more in the hazard zone for these storms. And I really think this area just north of Lima is going to be a battle zone for supercells and severe weather, because I've seen this on a couple of the models now. This setup right here. This looks pretty potent, and it's probably going to be the storms I'm on most of the chase. So the dark lines that you see there are related to updraft helicity. So what we look for in updraft helicity is the potential for the wind dynamics that are within that storm or within that certain region to produce updrafts. Okay, so that's showing the updraft is greater than 75. Okay, so that means it's a pretty strong updraft within the storm, and that's going to likely be a storm that intensifies as a result of that increasing updraft. Yeah, Interstate 70, it looks like it's going to be more to the north of Interstate 70, but that's just what the RFSA is depicting, and HRRR depicts that a little bit as well, but all of this is connected to a cold front that's going to be moving through the area, but these storms just look, wow, really fire. So that's going to be the thing to watch for. Let me check and make sure no comments on, I'm not missing anything. Doesn't look like I'm missing anything, so we're good there. Alright, so let's look at a regional view of the dynamics for this storm setup, and we're going to do a compare models setup for this as well. We're going to go back to the HRRR, the more reliable model. Let's see if the 0Z is coming in yet. Nope. And we're going to freeze frame it right on when these storms fire around, I want to focus on 1 p.m. So let's go to 1 p.m. That's hour 24. Alright, so there we have it. Now we get to look at some of these severe weather dynamics that we have in the atmosphere. So, first of all, let's look at the Cape the amount of instability we have in the atmosphere ahead of these storms, it really looks to be focused across northern Ohio and parts of northern Indiana, which is why I think this region here is going to be the greater focus for severe weather on or tomorrow around 2 or 3 p.m. So I think that's going to be that's what's going to be coming for this storm setup. I think it's really going to be around here. So that's kind of the area I'm going to stick around. This is actually the best chasing terrain right in northwest Ohio, so it's going to be a good spot. Yes, I'm going to be doing a live storm chase. I'm starting in southeastern Michigan and then gunning it south when those storms begin to fire, and then following these storms southward until I reach the Interstate 70 corridor. I'm really going to probably end the chase at the Interstate 70. You go farther south than that, you get into the mountainy regions. Yeah, I'd say hail is a greater threat than tornadoes. I really think the main threat's damaging winds, but hail is definitely something you may see from these storms as well. So, cloud base height, again, gets lower as you get towards the storms. The amount of shear in the atmosphere, here's your bulk shear you have ahead of these storms. Shear of about 40 to 50, which is good enough to foster severe storms. Storm relativity, the measure of spin you have in the atmosphere. You can see that there's certain places within this area that you get a lot of spin within these storms. And again, that's probably associated with the cold front creating that lifting mechanism that these storms are going to be feeding off of. So supercell composite values, the potential for storms to produce supercells. It's elevated in certain spots. Again, that's dependent a lot on the amount of spin that's in the atmosphere with these storms as well. Updraft helicity. So yeah, it really looks like that hazard for supercells focuses across parts of northern Ohio and northeastern Indiana. So I really think north of Findlay, north of Lima is really where I might target for a severe weather setup. So it's likely going to begin somewhere in Lima, Ohio for me. But we will see. Anything can happen. Let's back it up a little bit, because right now I am looking at 11 p.m. and I don't want to look at that. I want to look at when these storms are firing. Right here. So yep, you have your northwesterly winds, your west-northwesterly winds aloft in the upper levels, and then your southwestern winds at the surface and mid-levels, which creates that directional shear as well. But that's what it looks like in terms of severe weather setup. Well, yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at the new model runs. The new model runs are coming out at this current moment, so it's going to take a little bit of time, but I'll publish that to the community tab on my channel here once that new data comes out. That's going to take a little while to come out, but yeah, we're still waiting for that new model data, so that's going to take a little bit of time, but I'll publish that there. Once that new model data gets imported into the system here, I will have that for you. But keep in mind, there's still a lot to be figured out about this setup, so just stay tuned for later updates. I don't think I'll be live in the morning to discuss the setup, but I will be watching it carefully during the morning and then heading out to chase pretty quickly after that. So yep, so that's... I did not discuss the thumb region, but I will discuss it right now, as a matter of fact. I'll take a look at that real quick. Let's back it up to the 18Z. And let's look at the reflectivity. So the thumb region, I would say, you got a few storms that pop up across the thumb region, but I really think the focus of severe weather is going to be right just south of the Michigan border. I think that the main hazard is going to be focused just south of here, where the instability is greatest. I don't think you're going to have as much instability near the thumb, but again, the thumb region, man, you just get all kinds of stuff up there. It's just a weird place. Those days you don't expect things to happen up there, it happens. You just got Strange wind dynamics up there associated with the lakes. But yep, storm chasing probably going to begin around 2 p.m. I might wait to start it until I'm actually on a storm this time, but we'll see. It's just going to be me chasing, so it's going to be rather busy. I may not be able to keep track on all the comments. It's going to be kind of a busy time, so especially if there's a tornadic supercell, I want to make sure I'm in reporting it before anything else. So, but yeah, I think the thumb region is not going to be as significant as areas to the south. That storm near Fort Wayne, wow. Let's get a sounding of that guy. Good cape, good instability, low cloud bases. Yep, so there's a lot to consider with this setup, but I'm going to probably end the stream here. I will be live tomorrow storm chasing on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and I think that's pretty much it, but yeah, you can subscribe and I will be on there. Yeah, you definitely want to keep your electricity, so hopefully that will be the case. But I'm going to end the stream here, and I will be live out on the ground tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I'm just going to make sure I got all the comments. If there's any on Facebook, nope, we're all good there, I think. So, alright, thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you all